Welcome to Shack Together. Today we're joined by Greg Burke of Shacknews video fame. Greg tells us all about his Final Fantasy VII Rebirth experience. We go on to predict the Nintendo Switch 2, or whatever it might be called, and be, and do, ahead of next year's launch. Over in Storytime, we congratulate me for being so right about the Xbox games that are coming to other platforms. Asif and Greg go over the Nvidia earnings that just got announced. They touch on the new Elden Ring DLC, offer a quick peek into the Helldivers 2 review, run through the DICE Award winners, and look ahead to Penny's Big Breakaway, the new release from the Sonic Mania folks. All that and more on today's show. Thanks for listening. Enjoy. You could kick things off by ripping John if you want. That's fine.
Nah, I don't want to do that.
Oh, okay. I'll do it later, I guess.
Here we are. This is the cold open part of the show, Greg. So we still do a cold
Greg,
open.
If you have a tight 5, now's the time.
No, I'm good. I've got my water and I'm ready to do this thing.
So, Greg, I have a question. Because we haven't recorded a podcast in years together, right?
Back 2019 or 2018, I believe was the last time I've done something, a podcast with you.
And we have a series of taco bets. Do the taco bets carry over to Shack Together, or do they stay at Shackcast? That was an important question I wanted to ask you today.
The bets tied to the individual making the bet and the people there at the time. So I'd say yes. I'd say it's individual basis, right? So you owe me tacos for FF7 being 3-disc, and I'm sure I owe you tacos for something.
Okay. But at some point, we're going to have an arbitration hearing about how many tacos are owed to who, right?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Can we get more explanation here? So 3-disc was a bet.
So
what's the rest
here's the thing. Before Final Fantasy VII Remake came out, Joe, I thought it was a $60 game, and that was it. This was years ago, right?
One big game.
I just thought it was a big game. I thought we were just going to get one big game, like Final Fantasy VII was one big game. And Greg on the podcast was like, no, dude, they're going to sell us 3 games for $60 each. And I'm like, there's no way. There's no way they do that.
Well, technically, Greg was also wrong because it's 70.
It is $70. Yeah. It's more.
Well, he was right about 3 games.
He was right, yes.
And it wasn't. What's funny is they had already announced the 3 games. I just was in disbelief. I was like, no. This is just one game, right? They're not going to get $180 for Final Fantasy VII. That just seems like too much. Nope. Yeah, we're going to end up paying more than that.
For sure.
So yeah, I might owe you tacos, Greg, still, I guess. But at some point...
I can arbitrate right now, real quick. It feels to me like an appropriate amount of tacos would be a meal's worth, so 3 to 4.
I would say 7 would be the appropriate number.
I want to say it might have been 20 because I was pretty full of myself back then, and I was like, oh, yeah, I'll give you 20 tacos. Yeah, if we want to knock it down to 7, that's okay. So I honestly can't remember what tacos you owe me.
I probably use some. I guarantee I owe you some.
We never made a bet about F-Zero, did we?
No, I don't think so. I only bet when I'm knowledgeable about something, and I'm not very knowledgeable F-Zero, so there's no way I would have taken a bet like that.
Yeah, I think the Final Fantasy VII one was it's the outstanding taco debt that I owed.
The infamous taco bets, yes, absolutely.
We are burying the lead because last week I failed to create a taco bet when I correctly called the 4 Xbox games that were coming out.
You're right.
And here I am, taco list.
Yeah, you forgot that Shacknews is a taco-based economy, basically. So, especially the podcast universe, the Shacknews extended podcast universe, I think is what it's called. It's a taco-based economy, right, Greg? No crypto there is needed, but talk to me in tacos.
Exactly. Side salsa in this economy?
Yeah.
Let's kick off this taco list show, please.
Cool. listening to Shack Together, a Shacknews video game podcast where if you're not together, you're probably a listener. I'm your host, Asif Khan, and today I'm not joined by my co-host, John Benjamin, but I am joined by our producer, Joe Stasio, and our head of video at Shacknews, Greg Burke. Hey, guys.
Hey, howdy, hey.
We don't know where my co-host is. He's probably in some metaverse somewhere. Maybe he got lost in his Vision Pro headset because he loves it so much.
The one that he returned? I should let him tell the story. He returned it.
He returned it?
It's a big story.
He returned it. He returned it after being... How many flowers did he give that thing on this very podcast?
There were laurels. There were awards given.
It was like the freaking Kentucky Derby. You know when the horse gets that big-ass wreath of flowers? It was like John hand-delivered one of those to Tim Cook in Cupertino. And then he returns it?
Yep.
Guess who didn't return it? This guy.
Okay.
He's doing two thumbs. You just can't see it.
Yeah. You know what? That's a problem. It's a problem that I'm having on this podcast, Greg. Because I was talking about a picture of the first episode. Now I'm sitting here doing the thumbs. You know me, Greg. I had
there could be a guy next to you being like, that guy didn't return it. Now, how do we know? You got to give context.
That is wild. Look. $3,500 for a computer that you're not going to use is a lot of money. That's a huge problem. But man, how can you go from... I recommend people go back and listen to our first episode because John was glowingly positive about the thing and how it was the future.
This is an allegory to John's Yakuza feelings shifting from the previous podcast till now.
But we don't want to talk about him because he's not here. We'll talk about that in a future episode. But that's wild. I did not know that. That is hilarious, and I will give him crap about that.
Mm-hmm.
But we brought Greg on. We know what he's been playing, but let the folks at home know what you've been playing, Greg.
I got at least 2 weeks with Rebirth, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth,
nice,
on the PS5.
Let's hear it.
It's a very long game. I was about halfway through it and I'm like, oh my god, this game is huge. And Asif, you and I had discussed I can do the full game playthrough and then I'll go through and beat it on hard and I'll do all the bosses because the first one was so much more focused and smaller.
Yeah,
so
more linear.
Yeah, and so this one is much more I was like, oh my god, if I do everything, it's gonna be 100 hours. If I beat it on hard, it's gonna be another 100 hours. And I don't think I have the physical time to do that. But god, it's a good game. It's a very good game. I didn't get to review it, unfortunately. That honor went to Jesse, and I do disagree with his 8. I think it's a very high 9. Very, very high 9 for me. But I've played the original, and I was a huge fan of the 97 game. The 97 game is absolutely fantastic. I know, Asif, I know you played it. Joe, have you played the 97 game on the PS1?
I admit that I haven't gotten to the end because I tried to play it 4-ish years ago, and it showed its age. I get the appeal, but it was, it was rough.
It's truly had to be their moment in gaming.
Yeah. Because
it was an amazing game when it came out and it told a great story. But yeah, it doesn't hold up. But I think it's tough for a game that old. And you think about the hardware that it launched on and all that. It's why we're here and they're remaking these. But I'm interested to hear why you think it's a 9. What were some of the things that, obviously not spoiling it for the folks at home, but what are some of the things that made it a 9 to you?
Basically, it expands on every facet of the first game, just like how the first game expanded on the 97 game, and it keeps all that fanfare there. Even if it was goofy or corny, it stayed in. A lot of those pivotal moments in the 97 game are still there. The mannerisms are still there. The combat is phenomenal. It feels great. I feel the combat in the Final Fantasy remakes are pivotal to future Square Enix games, much like how Kingdom Hearts changed how their battle systems would go moving forward from the turn-based stuff. The real-time combat is it has a flow to it, and when you feel you're doing it right, you feel you're this god among men, just whooping these bosses and not letting them do anything to you. All the key moments in the story are there that you've enjoyed from the 97 game. And it does everything so well. It's a love letter to the original one, because the thing that Jesse knocked it for was too many mini games, but the mini games were part of the 97 game. And it was a huge part of that game. And I feel to dock it for that isn't really fair, because if those had not been in the game, all the 97 fans would have been upset.
He did say mini game overload.
And I think that's where it lost a point.
If you read the whole review, he talks about how there are some narrative beats that they like kind of gamified. I guess the parade is one of those where like they made some things that may have been like a more traditional cutscene in the past into like a little more interactive thing. And it sounds like they kind of missed on some of that stuff. I read that more than hey, these mini games are bad, because I don't think he said that. He just said there was a lot of them and they kind of distract from the story.
Well, there were a lot in the 97 game too. There were a lot in those ones too. Yeah.
No, oh for sure. That I just want to ask you about the mini games. I know the Queen's Blood is like the one that everyone is talking about, but like there's a spaceship fighting mini game.
Yeah, and it's done really well.
Is it like Star Fox?
Yes. Yes, exactly. It's an on-rail shooter. You do barrel rolls. You lock on the targets. You have a super move that's very reminiscent of like the bomb. Like it's totally yeah.
So I love Star Fox. What does that have to do with this game? You know what I'm saying? Like it sounds like a distraction to me. I'm not complaining because I might actually like it more than the game. But you know what I'm asking, Greg? Like
yeah.
What do these add to Final Fantasy VII Rebirth that was missing in remake or even in the original?
I feel like it expands on the world building, right? Like in the first
game, Gold Saucer, for instance.
Yeah, the Gold Saucer specifically is just like this is a world where other things are happening rather than you just saving the world. And like, yeah, it's very reminiscent of any side quest in any big RPG. Zelda, for example, you're supposed to be saving the princess, but you're trying to get bottles. You know what I mean? Like it's big, but it adds to the world. And that's what they really did, is they built upon this world base where the first one kind of set the tone of like this world and how Shinra acts and all that good stuff. And the sequel, you kind of see how like the publicist, like this is a theme park. So you get to see how people go to this theme park and like the plays on like wealth inequality and like the cost of running a theme park in this very poor area that puts like this other town like basically out of business. And it's like that's where it expands. And like in the 97 game, you could spend dozens of hours in Gold Saucer just getting lost in the mini games, because like the mini games, and it's the same for this one too. The mini games, if you do them a certain way and get a certain score, you get an item.
Okay.
Right. So like you get stuff from it, and like to be fair, like these mini games, you can get the item fairly quickly. Like I got the item from the space shoot game on the first try, so like they're not nearly as grindy as the 97 one.
Okay.
But like and of course you have like the battle arena, and there was another area that was closed off at the time. The 97 game had a snowboard mini game. I don't know if that's in the game. I haven't gone back since it reopens, because you revisit it again later. But like, yeah, it's just a place to like spend time and like to do weird stuff. Just a massive side distraction, but you don't have to do it. Like you could skip, like at a certain point in the game, I had to skip a lot of stuff to get to the credits. I had to get to the end.
Sure.
But like I could easily spend a dozen hours there, like just doing mini games and having fun, because that's what it's supposed to be. It's supposed to be a distraction. Like that's its purpose.
I guess it's just, it may not have hit for some people. I do like your point about the theme of maybe not wealth disparity, but just corrupt corporations in the Final Fantasy VII games in general, in the original and in the remake and now in this. The Gold Saucer is definitely an example of that. It's this giant ass casino looking thing and in a fairly destitute area. So that is I guess that is a way where it does kind of push the narrative forward, but when you're inside there, I don't think it's as apparent. But once again, I haven't played this game yet. I'm just going off of what I've read.
Yeah, the themes in the original 97 game stay true to the remake, where there's basically a corporation that manufactures, like they've discovered fossil fuels, basically. It's the equivalent of fossil fuel, right? So there's this energy that the planet makes and they harvest it and turn it into power. It's just a play-by-play of how diesel and fossil fuels work in our economy, right? But it's destroying the planet. It's not sustainable. You know what I mean? Like there's a lot of that in there. But of course, like when you're in Gold Saucer, and that's part of, they mentioned that when they're in Gold Saucer, like these people don't care. They just want to have a good time, right? That's like everybody when you do something, when you drive a truck that gets 2 miles to the gallon, they don't care. They just want a big truck. It's the same. There's a lot of those themes there, as well as like a lot of fascist themes with like Shinra and how it's run, like how corporations are just as there's really no government in this world. There used to be, but it was overthrown by Shinra because they had technology. Just like with any war, right? The person who has better technology is usually the victor.
Sounds like America.
Yeah, right. So like they're just the strong arm corporation, right? It's not really a government. There's no electorals. There's no shareholders. It's just this giant company doing whatever they want because they have the tools to do it.
No shareholders.
Yeah, they're not publicly traded. I don't think, Asif. I don't think there's a stock market in this world.
Yeah, I think when a dictator merges with a corporation, it's just kind of
And like those themes are they're there in the 97 game, they're there in the remake, they're there in Rebirth, right? The fascist government, like the whole like parade in Juneau, like that's just, it's fascism. Like, you know what I mean? Like all these people dressed up and like doing these salutes and all that stuff. Like it's a big play on that because they're an evil company. They're evil. Like they don't try to sugarcoat it. They're bad. They're very, very bad people. So yeah, it's really cool. But the game as a whole is just, it does have like with some of the stuff JC wrote and some stuff that I've played, I do agree it does have pacing issues. Tetsuya Nomura loves going over the top in a lot of places. Like I don't know if you guys know who that is, but he's also very famous for Kingdom Hearts. Like he was one of the art directors on Kingdom Hearts. He loves belts on uniforms. He loves putting belts everywhere. It's the gag. But he's yeah, right. Belts on your sleeves, on your legs. You win them all. But I think this is there were things you just couldn't do in the 97 game because of purely technology point, which made the game seem more grounded and more weighted. And yeah, there's like magic and there's summons and there's monsters, but like at the end of the day, right, these characters aren't jumping 900 feet in the air and like doing a big anime battle just because technology didn't allow that at the time. So the world felt more real. And this one, they do jump 900 feet in the air. There's a lot more flashiness, which is what Tetsuya Nomura is known for. And it does hurt the overall arc sometimes when you're doing these gauntlets of these battles, these boss battles, just back to back to back to back, and you get so numb to it. And Remake had that problem at the very end, where it was just this gauntlet of boss fights that was not necessary. And this one does it's the same problem with this one. Like they fumble. So we talked about this. They fumble at the finish line every time because of that.
I think that definitely stuck out in Jesse's review. I saw in some other people's review. The other thing I read was that the open world is not. There are times where it's not really easy to navigate. Like it has some like invisible walls that get in the way. It just kind of can be frustrating when you're like trying to just walk around in different locations.
There's no jump button. Yeah.
Like stuff like that annoys the shit out of me. If I'm in an open world and like it's like a rock in front of me and I can't get past it, it's like no.
Well, we're in a post Breath of the Wild world, and that game has ruined open world games for me, at least.
You're right. Like because in Tears of the Kingdom and Breath of the Wild, it's like there's a cliff. If you have enough stamina, or if you have a stamella shroom or whatever, you're gonna get over that cliff. And when even in like RE4 last year, there's environments that like you away from stuff, and I really don't like that. I wish games would. They break immersion when they do that. And I think a game of this size having that problem is a negative. So I do think that's probably another reason it didn't score higher at Shacknews. But
there's a lot of verticality in the open world, and it is because there is no jump button. Like I loved using this example as Zelda 64. Like everything's designed like in a very meticulous way. So we're like, because Zelda, Link automatically jumps when you reach a ledge, right? So stuff is designed that way. In this one, there is no jump button. You have like a vault button that also functions as a jump button in certain points. But like, so
that's contextual based on what thing you're next to.
Right? Yeah, and like people were giving crap about like people who know nothing about game design criticizing the yellow paint, but like I would have appreciated that in more areas because there's some things like I can't vault over that, and then I can. So I was like, okay. And like you learn it as you go by what you can and can't vault on. But like, yeah, there's a lot of, it's very hilly and very rocky in certain areas. And like, the game is not designed, I don't think, to be that way. It's designed, like the first game, it's designed staircases, hallways, giant rooms. Like that's what it's designed to do, right? Like very linear kind of like pathing, which is fun. Like linear isn't a bad word. I don't know why we treat it that way in gaming, but it's not a bad word. But like, yeah, it's also difficult in this open world because 7 had an open world, but there's like a lot of it's so empty. You're walking around trying to either find an enemy to like steal an item or get a skill from that enemy for the enemy skill materia, which is in this, which is great. But like it's so vast and empty, and they needed a way to fill that space in a modern game because you can't have that much empty space with nothing there, which gets into like these tower segments, which is that mechanic is so dated. Go to a tower activate it, shows you interesting points around the map, right? Assassin's Creed, it's a decade-old mechanic. It's so dated. But like, I don't know what else you're supposed to do in that situation, right? How else do you put markers on the map and have people explore them? You know, how do you encourage the exploration when it's much more, a little more? It's still big, but much more dense.
Are you gonna play this, Asif?
I don't know if it's on. Greg, do you think it should be a must-play game?
I think so. Yes.
Okay, then yeah, I'll play it. Because internally at Shacknews, Joe, we have this list of games that we consider must play. If you submit a Game of the Year ballot at Shacknews, you have to at least try to play all of those games.
Okay, that's cool.
It'll join that list. Every Monday we have like a staff meeting where we go over stuff like that. So yeah, just remind me on Monday, but we will add it to the list. So yeah, I'll play it. I didn't really like Final Fantasy VII Remake.
Wow.
Oh, what did you like about it?
Not wow, because I can't believe that. But I thought that you had said that you did like it.
No, it's good. I don't know. I didn't want to play it. I'll be honest. I had more fun watching it than I did playing it. So like, we had someone streamed it in its entirety. And also Greg did a really good job at capturing it. So like I helped Greg edit a lot of those videos and upload stuff. So like I watched the entire game multiple times, Joe. So it was just kind of like, And then it was also late PS4, and I didn't have like a PS4 Pro. So it would, I don't know, thing sounds like a lawnmower when I played Death Stranding on it. So like it was just, sure. I think it was a combination of those things. But it also just, I don't know. I like the battle mechanics in it. But yeah, it's also just a function of time. I don't think I had enough time to really play through that. So I just sat there and I watched it several times. It's a good game. But Rebirth's interesting to me because of its open world design. Like I'm more into that kind of RPG than I am that more. Yeah, and I agree that Final Fantasy VII Remake isn't totally linear, but it felt that way. But also, I'm just not like, I haven't really fallen in love with a Final Fantasy game in a really long time. So it's just one of those things where I'm like, I don't know.
Did you both play? I was going to ask if either of you played 16.
A little.
Yeah, I played a little of 16.
I like the giant kaiju battles or whatever the hell they call them, but no, it didn't. Same kind of thing. Like it just didn't really hit for me, but I enjoyed watching it. I think that's
fair. Yeah, no, I hated 16.
Okay. Okay. No, I can never tell with you, man, because sometimes like you love a game and sometimes you hate it. And like, I don't know what Prince of Persia did to you, but we'll get to that. I need to know because I like it right now. No, but yeah, I'm just not really a big Final Fantasy person, I don't think.
Yeah, that's fair enough. They haven't really earned it lately, in my opinion. So
I liked the weird road trip vibe of 15.
Oh, you like Final Fantasy Road Trip?
Same.
That one's great.
I thought that one was kind of cool. Just the premise was interesting, at least. Like sure. I don't know. Sometimes like they miss me sometimes with their stories, and I am impressed with Final Fantasy 14 and what that's become.
The online one?
Yeah. I think that's pretty cool. But once again, I don't have time for it, but I think it's impressive. MMOs. And I watch people stream it, and like that's a very competent game, and I think it's kind of supplanted World of Warcraft for a lot of people, which has been cool to watch. And they've taken good care of that game. So it really is hit or miss with me, and I'm also not a Kingdom Hearts person, like at all. So when they bring some of those ostentatious moments to a Final Fantasy game, that usually doesn't hit with me. I don't want to spoil this, but I have a feeling there's some things in this game where I'm going to be like, how they handle Sephiroth, I think is different. Right, Greg?
There's too much Sephiroth. I'm trying to do, if I have time, I want to do a feature of the top 7 differences, and like spoilers or heads up for the content. Number 1 will be like too much Sephiroth, which is ironic because like he's the main villain. But I'll say this in the original game, like in the original 97 game, you see him a few times, but you always like get right there as he's leaving or he's already gone. Like you barely run into him the whole game. And then the whole game builds up to the first and only encounter you have with him at the very end. So there's all this
but there's also
build
like
up.
characters talking about Sephiroth in that, right? Like they build him up through narrative. Like you don't, and obviously there's that like flashback mission or whatever. But yeah, it does seem like they went really hard just figuring out places to shove Sephiroth into the story.
Yeah,
and
there's like that principle in horror movies where it's like pretty well documented that it's so much more effective to not show the monster, as much as you can.
Absolutely dead on.
Yeah,
that's the same kind of principle here.
I think that's a really good point.
Like there's like a good example, the 97 game, like you're trailing them and you go across the swamp, which is in this game as well, and like you come across this giant snake that's been impaled on like a piece of like a tree, right? And you just show up and you're like, oh my god. They're like, did Sephiroth do this? You're like, damn, like I didn't know he was that strong. They show it in Rebirth and it loses its luster because they show it, like
they show him do it.
They show him do it, and it's like a weird, and like that's chapter 2. That's like that's chapter 2, so I can talk about it. Yeah, it's like this, and he does this weird telekinesis thing, and you're just like, what?
That's
and that's a direction problem because Tetsuya Nomura, like, he's a good example. You mentioned Kingdom Hearts, Asif. Disney was heavily involved in Kingdom Hearts 1.
Yeah,
and in all the subsequent spin-offs and sequels, they only cared about the art. They didn't chime in on the story at all, and like it shows. Like you can see the difference between 1, 2, and 3, and be like, wow, it goes like full anime in like 2 and 3. And I'm not a biggest fan about anime, and I know that's a big thing for a lot of people. And like this Rebirth has the same thing. Like they just go full anime at certain points. You're like, why did you do that? Don't do that.
Yeah, I feel like the more that Square Enix does that, the less it hits for me. So it's like, to Joe's point earlier, like saving that for these big moments. I think the game would benefit from that. It sounds like they kind of went the opposite direction.
That director works best in a box. I talk about it in my Pop the Culture Critic. Like when he has limitations, like I think he does a lot better. And I think if you played 7 and enjoyed 7, like you get so much more out of this game. Like if you didn't play 7, like the feels are real because you had these pre-rendered backgrounds that were stagnant camera angles. You know what I mean? They didn't really change. They shifted a little bit, but they were pre-rendered. They were all pre-rendered 3D models. And like going to these areas and like seeing them fleshed out, like in full 3D and like with more props than I've ever seen in a video game. Like I was looking for stuff they've tried to reuse, and it was hard for me to find anything because there were so many unique props in this game and models. It just, you can tell like they cared. You know what I mean? They didn't rush through it. And it's really weird seeing these areas that you saw in the 97 game fully realized, like at ground level. It's just, and they're spectacular. Like, I mean, Cosmo Canyon's a particular standout. Gold Saucer's a standout. Even the coal mining town Barrett's from is a standout. Like they do such a good job, like recreating those environments, but still staying true. Like it's wild. Like,
and they did that in FF7 Remake too, with like Jesse's, backstory, and that's cool. I do like that they're doing more of that world building.
Yeah.
But like, to me, I'm not sure if I don't know if I'm going to enjoy this, but I'm sold that at least I can go to the Gold Saucer and play Star Fox. It's not like we have a Star Fox coming out anywhere else.
No.
So it's like when I heard Sega Bass Fishing was in Yakuza or Infinite Wealth, I was like, oh, I'm in. So yeah, that's cool. We'll circle back and talk a little bit more about Final Fantasy VII because we did bring it up in story time. We
definitely will, because I will be for the next 3 months, I'm sure, as a father, taking my time with this one.
Yeah. Oh no, for sure. Joe will issue his review in 3 months. Look forward to it.
Probably.
That's fine. So yeah, but because the game's not out yet, Joe, you don't have early access like fancy Shacknews people.
Yeah.
What have you been playing?
I actually was going to bring up 2 things. One of them is a book that I think might be relevant.
Okay.
But the first is that I wanted to just circle up on Prince of Persia: The Lost Crown, which I complained about last week.
Yeah.
And because of the complaining, I felt the need to see it through, which I did. And I'm going to amend what I said slightly to say getting to the end was easier than I thought. Like the ramp that I thought was just going to be sort of like what's the math term? Exponential, growth towards like impossible. Didn't really happen. One boss in particular, which is what caused those comments in the first place, just felt unnecessarily difficult to me. That said, I still just I didn't love it, and I think strangely, coming from what I understand to be the Rayman team, which are some of my favorite games, I think I even still have a world record on Legends.
What?
Yeah, I had some like unbelievable speed running time on a certain level. I mean, it's been 8 years, so I promise you it's been broken. But
yeah, probably.
But I really connected with that stuff, and I don't know how true it is, but apparently it's a lot of the same people from that studio.
Yeah.
But this one just didn't feel quite as perfect to me. That's a bit hyperbolic, I'm sure, but yeah.
No, but Rayman Legends is like an excellent side-scrolling platformer.
Incredible. Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. That's a tough bar to hold it up to, but I just look at the history of Ubisoft's recent releases, and it's pretty good. I haven't gone back to it. I'll get to what I've been playing in a little bit, but so are you still feeling that it's a 5 out of 10 game?
Yeah, 5 or 6 for me, and like my rating scale isn't subject to like posting online. My personal rating scale doesn't hit Metacritic, so
yeah, you're not on OpenCritic or Metacritic.
Believe it or not, I've been trying to for years, but the reason I say that number so flippantly is because I'm allowed to just say, like, for my enjoyment level.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, confidently 5 or 6. Yeah.
I think on this podcast, just kind of in general, we're going to talk about Shacknews review scores, and then we're going to talk about our own individual review scores. So why Greg being here is great today is that we have a Shacknews 8 for Final Fantasy Rebirth, but Greg, who played through the whole game extensively, he thinks it's a 9. And that's kind of what conversation and discourse about games should be, opinions.
Absolutely.
Being able to have them, being able to defend them. So yeah, I think no, I enjoy hearing your opinions on games like that. So, and it does inform how much more time I want to put into it. I kind of wanted to wait and hear what you thought, and then I saw that, and I'm like, I'm gonna play some other games this week.
I'm sorry.
No, it's just a lot of games, man. I don't have that much time.
Too many games.
Like every weekend, I'm like, okay, what am I doing? And if there's new releases out there, I'm gonna check them out. So that's what I did this week.
Nice.
I'm curious if Joe has played. Joe, have you played like the Castlevania games and the Metroid games? If so, which ones? Do you have like favorite ones? Because I feel like that genre's done so well, specifically from Konami and Nintendo.
Well, if you listen to last week's episode, Joe brought up.
Don't say that. It's not.
I'm just
you don't
kidding.
have to listen.
No, you should. Everyone should listen. All of you.
Everyone should listen.
No, Joe. I'm doing a callback here, Joe. But Joe mentioned his intense love of Metroid Dread as an example of like the kind of Metroidvania that he likes.
There's a version of Joe that wouldn't even touch the Lost Crown with a 10-foot pole. But after Dread, I'm like, maybe I do like these kinds of games. But I think no, I don't. I think I just like Dread.
You just like Metroid, it seems like.
Yeah.
And maybe Celeste or
the best.
Celeste is not a Metroidvania though.
Correct.
That is a love letter to Super Mario 3, oddly enough.
That's I guess I gotta play Super Mario 3 then.
You do. You really do. But no, I had a chance to talk to Maddie Thorson about that at Game Developers Choice Awards one year.
Oh.
And yeah, there are so many little Easter eggs in Celeste that are just giant nods to an element in Mario 3. So like the thwomps in Mario 3, there's a couple of levels in Celeste that are inspired by that. Obviously, Towerfall influenced a lot of the level design too. I think I think they're called Extremely OK Games.
Yes.
That wasn't their name when they released Celeste, but it's the same team. Right. I think they have some amazing level designers there, with Maddie being the lead.
They're my favorite. Love it. I think Earthblade is the next one.
Yep.
I don't think there's any dates on that, but it's one of those games that, like, without the logo on it, I'd be like, that doesn't look like anything I would care about. But I am so dialed in for anything they put out.
I also love when Maddie will submit like a Mario Maker level to GDQ, or like there was a ROM hack stream last year at, I think it was Summer Games Done Quick that Grand Pooh Bear did. But yeah, like sometimes Maddie will even do like a Super Mario World ROM hack for GDQ. So yeah, there's just a lot of Mario love over there, and it shows through in what they create, even if it's not exactly the same thing.
That's awesome.
My question for you, Joe, is basically if you loved Dread, right? So some of these games, like I didn't grow up with Super Nintendo, like I didn't have one. So like my first Metroid experience was Prime, but like I know people who've played Dread and they go back and play Fusion, or they go back and play Super Metroid, or they go back and play what's the one for Super Metroid, right? They go to the other old games. Like we kindles this light for like, oh, if you liked Dread, you might like these other Metroid games. Did that make you go back and play the other Metroid games? Did you do that and not like them?
No, I think it was a bit of this Final Fantasy VII OG experience. And like, let me preface this really quick with saying I'm not immune to old, like, if anything, I would be known to some people in my circle, John included, as being the patient gamer that likes to go back in time a little bit. So I just tend to do that more with like an RPG. And I tend to do that more with something that is turn-based, where, you know, you can afford for things to not feel as good because there's no time commitment. And then when you're dealing with a twitch reflex game, like you know, like a side scroller, or I think Mario's absolved and doesn't fit into that bucket because it feels so good still. But,
I was gonna ask, like Super Mario World, have you beat that game?
I have not beat it. I have not, but it definitely isn't one of those games that I gave up on because it didn't feel good. That's
a game that I try to go back to at least once a year, and it still feels amazing. Like it's still, I think it's one of the best side-scrolling platformers ever. Super Metroid is also really good. Those would be two that I don't know, and also the Donkey Kong Country games for SNES were pretty awesome. But yeah, there's I saw Tropical Freeze is like on sale right now, and that was like a joke. That was like a meme for years that game never went on sale. But yeah, it's like $40 right now at a couple retailers.
Fantastic game. The best.
Yeah, I think it's interesting though. Like you definitely seem to like the harder side-scrolling games.
I guess so. Yeah, I guess I do. I wouldn't have I don't really think of them in that way, I guess, but that does sound right.
They're more challenging. Celeste is like the fact that you've beaten Celeste 5 times. Like that game's very challenging. That is a me throwing the controller on the ground kind of game, and I love it too.
The reason I disagree a little bit about that, and the reason I think this is a larger discussion, but for me, difficulty in games is so correlated to game design as opposed to like that particular platform is hard to reach. The game design, like the macro game design of Celeste, of the half a second you reappear after death half a second later. You know, and if and my verses in this comparison would be like Dark Souls to me is so challenging because you make me trek back.
The penalty of dying. Yeah.
It's like the time you're asking for time that I don't want to give you, and that makes it more challenging. So people that complete, I don't know. I doubt anyone would say Celeste is harder than Dark Souls, but let's pretend that they're equally hard, quote unquote hard. I think Celeste is so much easier because it's so much easier for me to give it another shot. So that's I think maybe a semantic argument.
Sure.
But
before we just never ask me what I've been playing, I'm just going to tell you guys.
I listen. Hang on. Awesome. What have you been playing?
Okay, so I have 4 games I want to talk about. I'm going to hit them very quickly. Mario vs. Donkey Kong remake came out last week. It's delightful. I loved this game for Game Boy Advance. This is an excellent remake. I'm nominating it for the Shacknews Award for Best Remake of the Year. I will say that there are elements of the gameplay that I found frustrating on the Game Boy Advance that are still present in this remake. It's mainly hit detection. You know, Mario is like his hurt box is like a square in this game. So if you're even just a little on the wrong side of like a spike or something, you're going to get hit. That's frustrating. That also becomes frustrating when picking up things to solve puzzles. That was a problem with the original game. they didn't really address it in this. So I found that kind of surprising, but at the same time, they stayed true to the original. So I'm not gonna be like, oh, that's terrible. Music is outstanding. The revamped art is amazing. I just love Donkey Kong as a character. So getting to like see this, like, this went from a Game Boy Advance game, right, to a Switch game. So you're talking about drastic increase in art style. So that cutscene at the beginning of the game is just great. Where Donkey Kong's watching TV and he's like, collect them all, buy them all, buy them all, and it's just, I love it. It's great. It's almost identical in a lot of ways to the original. So in the deep, dark recesses of my brain, I have already solved all of these puzzles that I'm trying to solve again.
Wow.
So that's kind of weird. And I don't think a lot of people are going to run into that because you're not as old as me. But I think this is, if you're like a parent that needs a good puzzle game for a kid, this is it. It's an excellent puzzle game.
Love to hear that.
It's an excellent puzzle game, and it has a 2-player co-op now. So, like, if you want to play with your kid, and they may not be the best, like, they can help you as Toad. That's cool. That's like a new feature that they added. So, highly recommend it. It got an 8 out of 10 at Shacknews. Josh Broadwell reviewed it. I think that's fair. I'm on like world 6 of 8 right now. So it was one of those things where I fired it up and I got like through 3 levels in one sitting, or 3 worlds in one sitting. There's only 8 worlds in it. So it's a little short, but like for like a kid's puzzle game, it's excellent. Highly recommend it.
Is it a remake?
Yes.
Okay, it is a remake. I remember seeing that game before. I was like, oh.
It was on Game Boy Advance.
Yeah.
And I think it may have gotten ported one time before, but yeah, it's the best version of Mario versus Donkey Kong. I just hope that we see more Mario versus. I just want to see more Donkey Kong games. Period. End of story. Real quick, I want to mention I've been playing this mobile game for like years, and I've just kind of gotten back into it in the last few weeks, maybe with football season coming to an end. It's called Retro Bowl. It's on Nintendo Switch too, and maybe on other consoles, but it's very much a mobile game. You play it in landscape mode and touch controls, but like there's no fake D-pad on screen or anything. You just kind of move your character by swiping. You throw the ball as the quarterback by like holding, like you like pull back on the screen and then let go.
Oh yeah, I saw someone else talking about this. Yeah, this is making its rounds a little bit, I think.
Yeah, they've just done a really good job of supporting the game over time, and it's a more rewarding football game to play the franchise mode than Madden. So I highly recommend Retro Bowl. It's one of my favorite mobile games, and I've just kind of gotten back into playing it a little bit. Like I'll have like a YouTube video going on my TV, and I'll just pull out my phone and be playing Retro Bowl while I like listen to a podcast or something. So I'm really, really, really back into Retro Bowl, and it's just fun, man. Like you manage a team, like there's like free agency, you have to hire and fire coaches. It is a better franchise mode than Madden.
It's crazy.
So yeah,
cool, man.
Highly recommend it. And then last but not least, this game was announced and came out yesterday during the Nintendo Direct. Pocket Card Jockey Ride On. This is a Game Freak game that is not a Pokemon game. It's a game about being a jockey who races horses, and you power your horse's ability to race by playing solitaire.
Now, this is a 3DS game.
What?
Is this a sequel?
This is it's a sequel, but it's also, I believe, Pocket Card Jockey released on Apple Arcade in the last few years, and this is like a reimagining of that for Nintendo Switch.
Oh,
this is like a new version of that.
Got it.
But you're right. Pocket Card Jockey was a Nintendo 3DS game, and it was delightful back then too. It's fun. The game's got a really good sense of humor. I just made it through like the first race, but yeah, I'm gonna be playing it a lot. I like solitaire. I like random horse games and like racing games. So I'm in.
Wait, hang on. You like random horse games?
People love horses.
Like I wasn't trying to think of that. It's not even a game, but it's that Japan World Cup or whatever. Have you seen these videos? No. It was like a DVD that you would try to guess which horse is going to win.
Okay.
It's real weird. Donkey made a video about it. It went viral, like, I don't know, probably 8 years ago.
Man, I guess I'm 8 years out of the loop here. Random horse things is a really good line, though.
It's called Japan World Cup. And it's just like you fire up a video and then all your friends guess which horse is going to win. And then you push play.
Sounds awesome.
I don't know. Like, Japan World Cup's really cool. So, like, horses in games, I guess I should have said, there's not like just dedicated horse games, but like Red Dead had a horse. Zelda has horses.
Sure.
Right before I beat Tears of the Kingdom, Joe, I completed that first side quest you get at Lookout Landing where the old man's like, my horse ran away. You know that?
Sure. Yeah.
Literally, I'm walking back into Lookout Landing and I'm like, I'm gonna go fight Ganon. I'm gonna finish the fight, right?
Okay.
And then I look to my left and there's that fucking horse. I'm like, well, I'm gonna go get that horse. So yeah, I don't know. I just any game where you can like capture horses, breed horses, name them really funny names. Yeah, I like stuff like that.
I mean, I expected to catch you in a fumble, and it turns out you do indeed like random horse games.
I do. So, I like horses in games, man. Epona or Epona from the N64 Zelda games. Yeah,
we love it. That's good.
I like when you have like a good horse companion. It helps tell a story. Also, the skeleton horses down in the depths in Tears of the Kingdom were pretty great.
Sure.
For locomotion purposes. Yeah. So yeah, those are the 3 games that I haven't mentioned that I'm playing. And then yeah, here it is. Everyone's favorite part of our show. I've been playing F-Zero 99.
I'm gonna insert like a crowd going
gasp. The audible gasp. So yeah, I ranked up again. So I think last week I was S+, right?
Yeah.
I ranked up to S2 a couple nights ago, and then I lost and it shot me back down to S+. So there's my license rank update.
Mm-hmm.
I did have a very, I actually audibly said afterwards, I'm like, well, that's depressing. I was in the lead on Big Blue for about 3 laps, and I died on the last turn in first place, and that knocked me down to 84th place. So that's heartbreaking.
I have a question for you about that.
Uh-huh.
And in our brief pre-show, Greg exclaimed Mario Kart when he heard you mention that.
Yeah.
And was it your fault?
Yes.
Okay, so it's not really Mario Kart.
No. It's well, okay, so when you're in first place in F-Zero 99, a bunch of these bumper vehicles appear in front of you. Some of them are gray, and if you hit them enough, you get a KO. And then there are these other flashing red ones. Those will explode if you touch them.
Okay.
I have it's just unfortunate luck where I will just randomly, or just, I don't know, you make an unforced error and you hit one of those and your race is over, right. Especially if you're in first place. Because to Greg's comment on rubber banding, which is I think what you were kind of getting at, Greg, there is a rubber band effect in F-Zero 99 in that you can collect these super sparks and that unlocks the Skyway where you're going like 600 kilometers an hour. And you don't have to deal with turns or whatever. But so the inverse of that means that when you're in first place, there are no super sparks because there's no one generating sparks in front of you. So you can't get a Skyway. So that is I would say that there is an element of rubber banding there. But usually if you're cleaning up on super sparks, you're too far behind to even catch first place. So that's why I don't think it's that big of a problem. But yeah.
That's clever.
It's unforced errors, guys. I'm just making mistakes. And it's like golf, right? Like I'm playing against myself. You know what I mean? It's in my head at times. But I really do believe that if I win, it'll be on the track Big Blue. I think my vehicle just fits that track perfectly. I also just am very good at that race. So if I can do a flawless 4 laps, I will win that race. I have not been able to do that yet. So that's been frustrating. But I feel like I'm close. John said I'd win in 2 episodes, so this is the first episode since he said that. So maybe next week I will win,
Maybe
maybe
next
the
week,
week after. But yeah, stay tuned. And then real quick, I want to shout out my rivals of the week. These are some great names, you guys. So this one I did not beat, but I love the it maybe makes the name even better that I didn't beat this rival. Fiasco.exe.
That's good.
I also beat Banana, just lowercase banana, and Gamer, lowercase gamer.
Wow, you finally met him.
I finally met Gamer in F-Zero 99. And then I
Wow.
also defeated Xylophone.
Oh my God. Fabled.
Those are 4 great names. Fiasco.exe got the better of me, but the other 3 I defeated. I mentioned it last week. I didn't say it as clearly as I could. I don't play Rocket League anymore because of this game. Like, I'm done. I've retired from Rocket League because of F-Zero 99. You know, I had a good run, man. I've won my tournaments. You know, I have a lot of hours in that game, dude. I'm actually pulling it up because if you add it across platforms, it's even more, right? Because I don't know if you remember when the Great Rocketing of 2020 happened, Joe, where you had to choose your true rocket self. No?
Oh, the epic transition?
Yeah. Yeah. I call it the Great Rocketing of 2020 because you had to choose.
It's famously known as that, yeah.
Yeah. You had to choose between your PlayStation self or your Xbox self or your PC self. So I chose my PC self. I have played that game for 3,000 hours.
Damn.
That's ridiculous.
That's enough. That's all I'm saying. I feel like I did everything I could in that game to the best ability of my skills. And I got the community over there is toxic as hell. And just the names. That's why I'm bringing up these funny names that I see in F-Zero 99, because that community is just like playful and fun and like, I don't know. So yeah, my daily game remains F-Zero 99. Still haven't won. I did have a second place finish on Big Blue. Frustrating. I was like 4 seconds behind first place, which is just annoying. But that's like, there's this element like what, and then I mentioned it already, but I was in first place for 3 laps almost. It is nerve-wracking being in first place for that long in that game. So I almost want to be in like 5th place going into the last lap, because then I can like let the guy in front of me hit all the red things. You know what I mean? But yeah, so I don't know. Tune in next week. Find out if I win at F-Zero 99. I will point out that Greg won a race in F-Zero 99, and I hate him for it.
Wow.
And he doesn't even play the game anymore.
I don't. I told you I was inebriated at the time, and I looked down. I was like, "Oh, like it could have just been dumb. I think it was just dumb luck. I got one in a million chance. You know, that's what it was."
Yeah, I still hate you.
I know.
Wow.
No, it's fine. He doesn't even know. Do you even know what vehicle you were driving?
The one that has the most endurance.
So Pico, the wild goose. Okay.
Yeah.
No. At least you weren't the Gold Fox, but I looked down on all other vehicles. That's fine. That's fine, Greg. I'm happy for you, even though you don't even like the game.
It's not that I don't like the game. I just, like I didn't have a Super Nintendo, so I didn't get to play that. I don't have the affinity for Link to the Past either.
Okay.
Not having access to play that game is a big factor. You know what I mean? Like,
but it's not F-Zero. It's F-Zero 99. It's so different.
But
it's a very different game. Just as someone who played the SNES game a lot, they're different. It's slower. F-Zero 99 is actually slower. But yeah. Anyway, grumble. Do you plan on playing Penny's Big Breakout this weekend? So I may have something to say about that next week.
Nice.
But yeah, those are the games I've been playing. And like I said, shout out to all my rivals, even Fiasco.exe. But yeah, it's just, I'm close, you guys. I'm very close to winning. And when I'm not winning, unless I have like a terrible race, like I'm placing top 10, top 15 in everything now. So I'm close. It's just, I could use some luck because I'm like the Cleveland Browns of F-Zero 99.
Hey, you got all the time in the world. Let's try for next week.
I have all the time in the world, but it's a live service game, so it could just go away at some point.
It's true. Andy Mindy has to win. He has to win.
I'm going to drive to Redmond and be like, hey, please, just give me another day if they announce that game's getting shut down. But hopefully, it feels like this is actually going to be a good transition, Joe. It feels like the kind of game that could live on the next Nintendo Switch system.
Oh yeah,
that's a segue right there.
Very nice.
I don't know. Do we have segue music?
Yeah, I got a bunch of crap I made with. We never shouted out the trumpets. This is a perfect time to do so. But shout out to Taylor Mandel on the trumpet for all of our music.
Hell yeah! Thank you, Taylor. I had no idea. You didn't tell me.
I paid him for what it's worth.
Nice. What a concept! Paying people in content creation. Wow,
amazing.
Anyway. So Joe has suggested that we talk about the second Nintendo Switch, the next Nintendo Switch, or as some people call it, Nintendo Switch 2.
No,
and maybe
Super Nintendo Switch, or we riot.
Okay, well that's the first question.
Yeah, great. Here we go.
So it's likely that a year from now we will know exactly what Nintendo's next hardware is. Like, we're gonna know and what it does. So let's call some shots now, so Joe can remind us in a year how wrong we were. So, Greg, you already stole my thunder. You want this to be named Super Nintendo Switch.
You call it Super Nintendo Switch, and you release it in the gray and purple scheme, print money.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Wait. Okay. Let me preface this whole segment with, because you're talking to the week-long standing champ of the Xbox announcement for getting it right.
Sure.
So, are we playing... We want Super Nintendo Switch, or are we saying they're going to name? I'm saying, what do you think they're going to name it? And maybe you still think that.
Boss, if you take it off, yeah.
Okay, that's a good distinction, Joe. I still think they're gonna.
Okay.
I still think they're gonna call it Super Nintendo Switch. Okay, so like occasionally, if you work in our industry, you will find yourself in a situation where maybe you're surrounded by people from Nintendo Treehouse.
Oh,
and maybe you float out that, and you do it in a way where no one's breaking NDAs or embargoes, right? I'm like, hey, what if there's a new Nintendo hardware system and you called it Super Nintendo Switch? Nobody on this mythical Zoom call that may or may not have happened, nobody scoffed at it. Everyone agreed that that would be a great name for the next Nintendo Switch. So I do think that there are people internally at Nintendo who are pushing for that right now. And if you look at what's going on outside of the gaming part of the company, there's Super Nintendo World, right? That's a physical amusement park attraction now in Los Angeles and in Osaka, and they're building one in Florida. So there's one thing that's awfully super. The other thing is the Super Mario Bros. Movie, which took over the world last year, and it's still selling games. The Super Mario movie effect continues. So there's another thing where people already are associating Super with Nintendo. Not to mention all of us olds who grew up in the 90s will all know the Super Nintendo. So there's never been a better opportunity for Nintendo to be super again. And I think this is that moment where they do it. Because this is not... It's so similar to the SNES, NES transition, right, Joe? Like, where SNES was better tech, but they kept the philosophy of the hardware in place. I think we're going to see that even more intensely with this second Switch iteration, because they got it right, that convertible handheld or the hybrid handheld console thing. They're never going away from that. So, in one sense, calling it Switch 2 and kind of giving it iPhone status would be interesting, but Nintendo being as weird as they are, I think Super Nintendo Switch is the better name.
I think you won't hear me poo-pooing the name in terms of its quality, but I do think there's going to be a big fear of what happened on the Wii U, where just like including the name Switch at all in the next product is too subtle. And like there is precedent for what you're talking about even more recently than SNES, where they're like, the new 3DS XL or whatever they did. I And I think that was kind of messy too, you know, and like they got away with that because it was super unsupported, you know, what like we got Xenoblade and that was it, I think, you know. And that was fine that it was subtle, but if they really want this to be like them continuing their victory lap, I just think it has to have like a very obvious, like, here's a new SKU. It's a new thing. And I worry that just adding super before it would be kind of like, it wouldn't get grandma to the store.
But it would get every kid. There's not a single kid on earth who will not understand that name. If you're like, here's Nintendo Switch, here's Super Nintendo Switch, the kid is going to understand that's better. Where I think you're right, Wii U from Wii, horrible. 3DS from DS, probably pretty bad too. Because those were very iterative. Even in their names, they were iterative. Right. So I think you're right that they would benefit from calling it something brand new, because then that's a brand new thing. But if this is an acknowledgement on their part that the Switch is the ultimate form factor for them going forward, it's like when iPhone shipped. We just make iPhones now. Nintendo may just make Switches now.
Right.
You know what I mean?
But if you're right, you know, then what's the next one called? Like they would, if they believe
Nintendo
this is the
Switch
future.
64, and then Switch Cube, and then Wii, and then Swii U. There you go.
I guess you raise a great point.
No. I'm just saying that they've had this opportunity in the past. They didn't do it. I think Super Wii would have been better than Wii or Wii U.
No question, better. But my devil's advocate is probably still not good enough. But we'll see. I hope you're right, because it's very romantic, you know, like that is such a nostalgic name.
And that opens the door, man. It opens the door for calling your game Super. Like Super Kid Icarus or Super F-Zero or Super Pilot Wings, Super Wave Race. You could bring back so many IP just calling them Super. So I think that if you look back at the SNES and what they did with the Super branding, it just seems like the right time to try it again, is all I'm saying. It just feels like it. It's just a feel that I have. It's not
fair enough
inside information. But when I had a chance to talk directly to people at Nintendo marketing, I made it very clear how much I want it to be called Super Nintendo Switch. Because, I mean, I kept shouting into the sky about how badly I wanted an F-Zero game, and it happened. So I do think that there's some kind of power to our words, even if, you know, not everyone's listening all the time.
Yeah, manifest it. Go. Do it.
So yeah.
I feel like Nintendo learns stuff a lot better than other companies too. Like when they had to do something bad and they learn from it and improve upon it the next edition. And I agree with also like not naming it Super Nintendo Switch would be a huge marketing mistake. You know what I mean?
Just with everything else that's going on with them right now, it just seems like they're feeling themselves. They're feeling kind of super. Be Super Nintendo Switch again. You know, it's fine. And then you have a whole new generation that could call it the Super Nintendo, right? Like that would be the Super Nintendo to a whole generation of kids. And like SNES would just be its own thing. Now, I'll throw in one more because I've always wanted to see this. And I know we'll never get it. To your point, we went Super, Ultra 64, right? What about the Mega Nintendo Entertainment System? MNES. No?
Yeah, it sounds, it doesn't roll off the tongue quite well as Super Nintendo Switch.
No, it doesn't.
But it's similarly romantic. So I like that part about it for sure.
But yeah, I think we're all kind of on the same page. I don't know, Joe, what do you think they're going to call it?
Yeah, so I don't have a great answer in terms of like fun to look back in a year, but I think it'll be a word that we haven't heard, like Switch, you know, so like Nintendo Creek. I don't know. I just think that it's going to have to be a name that is like not going to mess with search engine results, you know, just something new to pop up that's like that just makes it very obvious. So some word that I don't know.
Nintendo Vision Pro.
Yeah, exactly.
Awesome.
What's the sound what's that sound called when the trailers, when they get the click sound, they'll call it that, whatever that sound is. Nintendo Snap. Oh my God, that'd be terrible. So it sounds like an accessory.
Sounds like a collectible card game.
Now that it's out there, they'll be like, oh, that sounds good. We'll name it that.
Damn it. Nintendo, stop listening to our podcast.
Don't listen to us.
Actually, keep listening to the podcast and throw me a bone. Give me a few more months with F-Zero 99, please. So yeah, this next question I think is a very good one, Joe. Will the device be backwards compatible? With what
God.
is my question?
Oh, geez. I thought that part would be obvious.
You're
With
saying
only the GameCube.
no. So you're saying that's my point, though. Are you saying backwards compatible with Switch?
That was the implied intent of the question. Yeah.
Yes, it will. I believe it
Yeah,
will.
I agree. I think that would be a huge bummer.
Yeah, and not only that, I think that there are going to be games, Tears of the Kingdom, for instance, that are going to run better. There's going to be some element where either frame rates are improved, textures are improved, resolutions improved on this new hardware system. So you're going to be able to play existing games that you already bought with your Nintendo account, which for the first time ever are going to transfer. Your purchase history is going to transfer from one console to the next, finally, at Nintendo. So yeah, I think that Nintendo account, Joe, is going to be the vessel that they use to properly have backwards compatibility. But I'm sure they'll find some stupid Nintendo thing to do that will make it weird, right?
Well, yeah. So here's a question for both of you. Do you think they will pull an Xbox or will they pull a PlayStation? And what I mean is, Xbox said, here's some code that automatically makes things run better, not on a per game basis. It's just like macro code. And then PS5 was like, here's our patch for Ghost of Tsushima that makes it run better on PS5. Which one is Nintendo going to do?
Nintendo's going to go the Sony way, in my opinion, because that way they have control over which games are going to have this kind of benefit. But they'll also provide the tools for devs to do it. I think a lot of this is going to have to do with what chipset they use. So if they are going to stick with the Tegra framework and there's the new NVIDIA chip that they're going to work with, it'll probably have support for DLSS. So there's going to be super sampling of textures, so that perhaps a game docked could run at 4K. I don't know about 60, but 4K 30 maybe. So I think that, yeah, there's going to be, it's not going to be a one size fits all solution that like what Microsoft did. It's going to be more like PlayStation. But I think it's going to honestly resemble PC development when it comes to games that are implementing DLSS. So to your original point, it is going to be like a patch for Tears of the Kingdom, right? So it's like you have like the Switch version of Tears, and then you're going to have this DLSS, version of Tears. That would be my guess, is that they're going to create a kind of, it'll be like a first, second class citizen kind of relationship. Like the Switch is going to continue to exist. Super Nintendo Switch is just going to be the best experience. And then the real question is how long until they stop supporting Switch with software entirely? Because I think it's going to have a really long life compared to a lot of other systems.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Greg, what do you think? Backwards compat?
I mean, I think like at this time, it's a no-brainer for them to do that. There's so many there's some people that have invested time in ecosystems, and like I said, mentioned it before, Nintendo learns from their mistakes. Like you look at PlayStation, right? Like when they launched the PlayStation 3, it had backward compatibility, but everyone complained about the price. And then when they launched Xbox One, it had some games, but not all, and like that caused controversy. I think like people understand that when you're in an ecosystem, like especially Nintendo, like they want to see their library carry over, at least for the second generation iteration.
Mm-hmm.
And then when you get to third, fourth, it gets hazy, but like at that point, like yeah, like definitely like more power, updates, like you said, to older games that run smoother. Like I think Nintendo knows that. They know their audience now. They get it, right? The Wii U was a huge experiment, and I think they learned a ton from that.
Will the device differ in any meaningful way from Nintendo Switch? Yes, it will. I think it's going to have cameras. I think it'll either have a front-facing camera or maybe rear-facing cameras.
To what end?
AR. I think that augmented reality is coming back to a Nintendo system. So being able to like record selfie videos with a Mario hat on or something stupid like that. I think that microphone, camera are both going to be included in this new Switch, so that you can have voice chat. Maybe they'll bring back, I don't know if you remember the Wii U had a webcam network. It was like FaceTime before FaceTime or after FaceTime.
Oh yeah.
Maybe something like that. I just think more social features like that are coming. And I had a thought, like this is it kind of relates to the device, but it's almost more of a software thing too. I think it's actually both. I think Nintendo, they love gimmicks, right? Like they're like, what's the thing that makes us stand out, right? So the Wii U was a second screen, right? The 3DS was that 3D slider, right?
Yeah.
The Switch was that it was a hybrid console. I was thinking that they may put like their own AI companion in the device. So like you could launch games with your voice. Maybe there's like it'll have its own kind of built-in guide, like helping you kind of stuff. I think it'd be interesting for accessibility purposes, but also like AI is just like the it thing right now, right? It's like the thing everyone's obsessed with. Nvidia's stock was up $111 today. So like there's there's that obsession right now with AI in the world. So I just wouldn't be shocked if Nintendo, works with an open source AI thing to create something that might end up being better than Siri. That's one thought I had. The other thing, they have to do it. Those Joy-Con, they need to go. They need to go. They need to be.
Do you think the form factor will change at all, though? Like, is it going to be two, whatever they call it, the two Super Joy-Con attached to a screen again?
They better call it Pro-Con, and they better have better triggers. They're awful. Those triggers are the worst, I think, in any console. So they need better triggers.
Not to mention that like very few devs have taken advantage of any of the Joy-Cons. Interesting
like
tech.
HD rumble, yeah, like none of that.
Very few have. Like I just think one hand.
There's like an IR sensor on it. Like have you seen anyone use the IR sensor on a Switch?
No, and like very few devs use the touch screen. Very few devs use the verticality of the Switch. Mention,
like they have NFC in it too. Still, like you can still use near field communication with Amiibo. Is that going to be on the next one? That's an interesting one. Do you think Amiibo survive another generation?
I do.
Because that's hardware.
They're still selling them, right?
Yeah, they just released Cloud. Cloud? Sora, like last week.
Sora, yeah.
Yeah. So there's like 88. All 88 fighters in Smash are now available for purchase as Amiibo. That's pretty wild. But yeah, I think they'll stick around for that.
You put a thought in my head with the camera comment that like I can just envision this trailer with me. And now Nintendo Switch has a camera, and they're going to show people's, some like millennials' living room, because I think we're still the target. They're going to show the living room entertainment center, and the dock is going to be facing like 90-degree turn compared to the OG Switch, so that the part of the console that's poking out of the dock can, the camera can see the living room.
Sure.
And then we'll have like a Just Dance trailer or something like that. I think you're right about the camera. That's very that's astute.
And it's something that we had in other systems, right? There's the DSi, and then obviously the Wii U gamepad had it.
Yeah.
So I think that's a lever they could pull that would not surprise me, because it felt weird that there wasn't a camera or a mic on the Nintendo Switch. And then this could open the door for Discord being on Switch, which I think would be cool, but it would also hurt battery life. So we'll see what happens there. But yeah, I would say the controllers are going to be a big difference. In my opinion, they have to. Mr. Steam Deck over here, he loves his Steam Deck.
I do.
But it's giant. It's a massive, massive thing. The control, like the grips for the deck are excellent. So I think they have to do something similar. The real question I have: do the controllers need to be removable? Isn't that just a weakness of the industrial design of the Switch in general, that there's this latch?
Yes. Yes and no, because I love putting my Hori pad on there. I love that.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the only third-party controller I think I've ever said that about, but I like doing that.
Yeah, and Greg actually did an unboxing of the Nixie Wizard. It's a Wavebird that you can break in half, and then each side of your Switch is like a GameCube controller. So no, you're right. I think for accessories purposes and optionality, it's better. But you look at all the competitors out there, Lenovo one, the ROG Ally one, the Deck, they're all going with integrated controls, right? So that's one thing I'm interested in. That would be a huge difference from the original Switch if they just went, here's what you got. I don't think they're going to do that because
I don't think so. It's a solved problem. Like, they figured it out already.
like Joy-Con drift would have been infinitely worse, and it actually is worse in the Switch Lite because you have to send your whole system in when it doesn't work. So no, I just want them to have better controls because Nintendo makes good controls most of the time. But even with the Pro controller for the Switch, I felt it was a step back from the Wii U Pro controller, and that's just not common for them.
Yeah, agreed.
So I hope we see a change there. Other hardware change, screen. The screen. It can't be LCD. It has to be OLED.
The like the early insider information is that it is going to rewind a little bit, which is really disappointing.
I'm going to say something. I don't trust any Nintendo analysts at all. At all. I don't trust them because it may be entirely true that Nintendo placed an order for 8-inch LCDs, right? That could be true. That doesn't mean that the Switch successor is going to use them. It could mean Nintendo's going to release some giant monstrosity of a Switch this year just so they can get over the goalposts. Like this year is about Nintendo beating their all-time sales record. They're going for the high score. They want 156 million units sold. They're at 139 right now. One way to do that is to release a special edition Switch that no one has, right? So if we think back in the vernacular of Nintendo, XL, right? Call it Switch XL, and it has a bigger screen.
Yeah, that's plausible for sure.
So I as someone who analyzes Nintendo's financial performance, I don't know how the intelligent managers of that company could look at their existing sales data, like just last month or just last quarter, and you look at how many people are buying Switch OLED versus the other two and think, yeah, our successor shouldn't use this screen that everyone loves. Like, you have so much data telling you otherwise, right? So I really...
It's one of the few things that I would be like, oh, that's a huge step backward.
They can't. That's where I'm like, yeah, it's entirely possible that they bought a bunch of screens. That could happen. But Furukawa told us they're not releasing this year. And it just seems like, last year they gave us the Tears of the Kingdom special edition Switch OLED, and then later in the year there was the Mario Red one. It just seems like this is the year where they're going to do some weird Switch iteration that isn't next gen. It's just like,
I hope you're right.
That's what I think's going on. And then the other thing I'm seeing, NVIDIA, and this we'll talk about NVIDIA's quarter here in a second, but NVIDIA has not mentioned ramping up production of anything that would be in a Switch. So they tend to be a quarter or two early on that front. So maybe next quarter or the one after. If Switch successor comes out in March next year, we should be hearing about that at NVIDIA, without breaking NDAs, but probably around July or August. So we're just everywhere that I look that would indicate that this thing is being made, I see no evidence of that yet.
There's not, and there won't be, because the thing is like it's the same kind of, I think it's a marketing thing at that point too as well. Like you're not going to buy a Switch now if you know a new one's coming out in 12 months.
Exactly, and like I said, I think their internal goal is to beat the PlayStation. Was it 2? Yeah, PlayStation 2 all-time record, and also their internal record, which is the DS. So I think that there is a bunch of pride on the line here for them, and they're going to do their best to sell that many hardware systems before they call it a generation.
Yeah, compelling.
Yeah.
All right. Then, in the interest of time, let's get Greg's launch lineup.
Okay.
Oh God, see, I want to see you launch with the Mario title, but like they didn't do that with the GameCube. They didn't do that with the Wii U.
It's different this time though.
Yeah, so it's tough. Definitely not Zelda. Zelda's not a launch game. Zelda is like a mid console, late console cycle because they take their time with those games. They take 10 years to make. Definitely not Zelda. In the dream world, Star Fox would be great. F-Zero would be great. And like maybe another Luigi's Mansion would be great.
Luigi's Mansion 4. Yeah, that would be cool. You want to know mine?
Yes.
Okay, so I'm going to give you a launch window. This would be the 6 months surrounding the launch. Splatoon 4, that's a given.
Okay.
Super Mario 3D, like a 3D platformer. I'm going to go on a limb here and say that Super F-Zero will be a launch title, and Metroid Prime 4.
You think it's going to be next gen title? No way.
I think I think it's getting punted.
No, they wouldn't do that. They couldn't do that. No way.
Why not?
They could do that.
Why not?
Maybe it could be for both consoles. Maybe.
Yeah, maybe you think it's the Twilight Princess thing.
Yeah, maybe it's the Breath of the Wild thing, right? Like it's going to launch on both. I think it's very likely that it launches on both. But I also think that it's likely that they couldn't design what they wanted to because the hardware limited them, and that's why we haven't heard a word about it yet. But I think why not? Why not hold that off? That would be smart. Because then you get like a Mario, and you don't get a Zelda. I'm gonna throw out one more thing.
Yep.
A Donkey Kong game.
Yes, I was waiting for you to say it.
Yeah, I want a Donkey Kong game at launch. Most likely a side-scrolling one, but I would not be against either the team that makes Mario Odyssey or the team that made Kirby and the Forgotten Land. I wouldn't be against either of them getting a chance to make a 3D Donkey Kong game. Because like the Mario movie sets this interesting precedent where Donkey Kong can pick up Mario power-ups. I need a game like that badly. Like ever since I saw Donkey Kong with a fireball in his hand, I'm like, give me that in a game.
It never occurred to me that was novel. Yeah, you're right.
Never done it before. He's had his own power-ups in his universe, but he's never like eaten a mushroom or a fire flower before. So I thought that was pretty wild. And like I said, we're in this era where a lot of people are being introduced to these franchises because of the movies. And just real quick, will Nintendo's follow-up hardware curse strike once more? Greg, what do you think?
What do you mean? Like it's going to launch bad, or how to?
Wii to Wii U, Nintendo to Super Nintendo, Super Nintendo to N64.
Depends on how innovative they want to get, because that seems to be where they stab themselves in the foot, right? They're like, oh, it's going to be a new thing that no one's ever seen before, a Power Glove, right? Wii U, like it's like, but like the Wii was successful. It was magically successful, and that was them innovating, but that was just them fixing the Power Glove after 20 years.
But the point was, the GameCube wasn't some wild success. It's more that when Nintendo has wild success, they tend to trip over their own feet on the transition. Yeah. So it's like, I think Wii to Wii U is the most extreme example of that. DS to 3DS is another example of that.
Yeah, a more muted example, but yeah.
Yeah,
I think people have spoken for this generation. Like they want a Switch that just is more powerful, that can do better graphics, that can load faster. That maybe, I don't know if people have asked for a larger screen. I think the screen's a good size. I don't think it need to be larger. We don't need to go iPhone XL on this thing, but like maybe we do. I don't know. I feel like if they just make it more powerful, right, and you can get 1080 60. I don't know why that's an arbitrary number everyone looks to, but that's what people always bitch about on the Switch handheld.
I don't think you're getting 1080 handheld.
You think you're getting 720 still?
I think it's like 800 in some cases, but yeah, like you look at the Steam Deck, it's what, 800p. Most of the Steam Deck competitors are 800p. I think that's a power consideration, Greg, that people don't realize, but it takes a lot more energy to have 1080p handheld.
Yeah, and it's also you don't need it. I mean, I don't think you need it.
No, I totally agree, but everyone's like, the loudest complainers always whine about it not being 60 frames, and it's like, okay,
people aren't buying this.
Right, they're not. Yeah, they bought the Steam Deck.
Exactly, and they have a pirated version of every Switch game that runs like ass on their Steam Deck, and they think they're the king of the world, running Tears of the Kingdom at 60 frames per second. It's like, good for you. But no, the good news is that I don't think there's any Tegra X1 chips lying around anymore, you guys. So they're basically out. Nintendo bought all of them for like $5, almost 10 years ago. So yeah, that question, Joe, will Nintendo's follow-up hardware curse strike once more? It haunts me as a Nintendo shareholder every day.
Yeah, sure.
It is the number one risk that I highlight to the investment right now. But I go back to what I said. Is this a company that now makes Switches and that's it? Because then this could be like iPhone 3G to iPhone, right? And that was a big jump. And then you had the iPhone 4, and that was you know what I mean? So like, if they're getting into that era, I think things are very different. And going back to your point about backwards compatibility, their commitment that the Nintendo account is going to live on to the next generation, I think makes me less uneasy about that.
I agree. Yeah.
But yeah, great conversation. Cannot wait. I hope they call it Super Nintendo Switch. And we'll be right back with story time. So stay tuned. Welcome to Storytime. Let's dive into the latest stories from the past week. Our first headline, Joe was right. He called the games coming to third-party consoles from Xbox perfectly. Hi-Fi Rush, Sea of Thieves, Grounded, and Pentiment all are coming to PlayStation 5. We're getting Grounded and Pentiment on Nintendo Switch right now, but then Rare also announced a bunch of games coming to the Switch Online service. So it's Snake Rattle and Roll, RC Pro Am, Blast Core, and what was the other? Oh yeah, Battletoads in Battle Mania. I think a couple SNES games. Oh yeah, Killer Instinct for SNES too.
That's it.
So yeah, pretty cool. Congratulations on being right, Joe.
Thank you. What do I get?
Nothing. You just golf clap for me.
Okay.
Yeah,
great.
You can edit in some applause. So Joe has to go. He's got business to deal with.
I got to take care of my son.
Yeah. Babies and shit. But yeah, Greg, stick around. We're gonna finish this. We're gonna land this plane, and everyone's gonna leave here knowing a little bit more about NVIDIA.
Take care, guys. Can't wait to hear it on the edit. Peace.
Hi, Joe.
And there, just like that, he was gone.
You know, it's funny because we talk about that. We shit on the Tegra trip, but I just think it's interesting because technology is so fleeting and moving so quickly. You know, that like by the time a company has a design, gets the manufacturer out, sets the price, and starts making it, there's already like 3 chips that are ahead of it, and it's just you fall so quickly behind. I think nowadays, and that's
you're instantly obsolete when you ship. And that was true. What I find funny about it, Greg, is like that was as true of PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X as it was the Switch. It's just that Nintendo got out of the arms race because they sell their hardware at a profit.
It destroyed Sega. Like the Sega lot, like they just couldn't do it. They couldn't keep up.
Because the Dreamcast at a moment in time was the most powerful console, and it was better than the arcade experience. But they spent so much. It's a dangerous game, and it's one that I think Satoru Iwata won handily. And the results that we've seen on the Switch and Microsoft coming with their hat in hand after buying Rare and putting all those Rare games on Switch, that's just funny. That is real funny. The world's funny. So here are some stories, Greg, from Shacknews.com. NVIDIA Q4 2024 earnings results beat revenue and EPS expectations. They're just printing money over there, dude. Every single company, we cover all the earnings results in tech and gaming. And it was just a trend that I noticed in all these conference calls. Microsoft said, we're increasing our spend on compute, right? They're buying more cloud computing capacity. Elden Ring, so not Sony, Facebook, Meta, whatever the hell they call themselves now. Meta's like, we're increasing our spend. Google said, we're increasing our spend. Amazon said, we're increasing our spend. You know who wins from all of that? NVIDIA. Right? Like they're just, they're in the perfect place at the perfect time for this moment. And I think that we're going to witness them become the largest company on earth.
No, you're right. And then, was it the earnings last year, I believe, or last quarter? It might have been 2 quarters ago, where they had Jensen. People were obsessed over the supercomputer they were building. Like they kept asking questions, and Jensen had to keep correcting me. Like, it's a big machine. It takes 20 machines to build. Like everyone's like, it's the future. And he's like, it's not quite there yet, guys. Like he couldn't have played it any more previously, but everyone doesn't care. It's a race to get rid of the employee at this point.
No, but the H100 chip that they're shipping right now is, he said it's got like some ridiculous amount of components in it. So yeah, it's hard to make. It's actually funny that they could actually make more money if they had the supply. So the results were outstanding. They had they're guiding for their quarter one to make $24 billion in sales. And the other thing that's notable, their gross margin on this is over 70%. So it means like for every dollar, they're making like 76 cents of profit. So a lot of people are focused on the price to sales ratio of Nvidia right now. I would instruct them to look at the price to earnings ratio of the stock and then look at it on a forward basis. Nvidia, it sounds insane to say this, but Nvidia trading for $790 a share, it's actually not that expensive when you look at how fast they're growing. No other company on earth is growing as fast as them right now. So it's a very interesting story. Keep an eye on it. Obviously, we live streamed the conference call. I think we had like 1,500 people watching it at one point. So people are interested. Things are moving along in the AI space. And yeah, on the other side of it, I guess we can talk about this a little bit. We're seeing more media layoffs. There's reports of what's happening at Vice right now. We're not entirely sure if Vice.com will be erased or not, but we did see some editors saying that. And then Engadget laid out a huge restructuring plan at the same time. And then I also saw that the IGN guild got recognized by their ownership, so that's pretty cool. But that means that there's probably a negotiation ahead of them.
Getting recognized doesn't mean that it's a great thing, you know what I mean? Like, it's a step forward, sure, but
it's better than them ignoring it, which I was kind of worried about. So it's I was happy to see that news for the IGN creators. Is it guild, union, whatever they call it? Congratulations to those folks. Good luck on your upcoming negotiations, because I have a feeling this is just the beginning of that story, to your point, Greg. Moving on the news front, Elden Ring Shadow of the Erd Tree expansion. We're probably the two worst people on our staff to be talking about this. I don't know if you played Elden Ring much.
I'm more looking forward to the sequel, which is the Fall of Ermagod.
The Fall of Ermagod, yeah.
Yeah, that's the
I just had like 50 turd tree jokes ready to go, but Ermagod's also good.
Ermagod's pretty good.
I feel
we
bad
are the worst people.
Like a lot of smaller companies were announcing games yesterday, and they got overshadowed by the Erd Tree. That comes out June 21st, so keep it locked on Shacknews. We have a bunch of guides already for Elden Ring, so if you want to check them out, if you're going to be playing through the game again, yeah, there's that. So yeah, Elden Ring. I suck at that game, Greg. I'm very bad.
I'm ready to hit that roll button continuously. I mean, like what Joe said, like the game just doesn't respect your time, so I don't respect that game. Like,
I don't know. I respect the game, but I also am just kind of I just suck at all of them. I just am not. There's something about how they play. It just doesn't. It's all the parrying, and I don't know. I'm still trying to beat Demon Souls on my PS5. We'll stick with that. We did have a review that came out this week for Helldivers 2. Lucas White actually played the game long enough to review it, so props to him for even being able to get into a game. I've given up on playing it just because the server situation is so rough. But when I do play it, I enjoy it immensely. It got an 8 out of 10 at Shacknews. Some of the pros were Liberty! ! It's funny as hell, well-tuned and player-friendly progression systems, and lots of variety of action. The cons are that it can be incredibly stressful even when it's fun. It's janky at times, and dealing with performance issues is a thing, at least in the launch window. And some of the controls are pretty complex, and they're not going to win any accessibility awards. That being said, it's just a fun game to get together with your friends and shoot bugs or robots.
What I think is hilarious about that game and its massive success, congratulations to that studio, by the way. Like, that's a good problem to have, like having so many people play your game. It's a problem, but it's a good problem. Is that like I have friends who are like they're ex-military, super into guns, super into, like all that good, that macho machismo stuff. And it's like, I had to explain one of my friends that Starship Troopers was a satire and it was anti-military. and he didn't understand. I was like, no, you don't understand. It's parodying the military. It's saying that it's indoctrination. It's mind wiping. It's like it's people sent to their deaths every day. Like it's not a badass hell yeah Marines for life. Like it's a satire of that. And like I think people don't understand that, so they're getting both sides of the coin. The people who understand that satire, and people who think it's just a America. And I think that's amazing that they were able to get both sides of that.
I think it's funny that a lot of people are realizing that Starship Troopers wasn't some patriotic movie.
Yes.
It's like satire, and that was funny to watch. But yeah, it's a good parody of nationalism and that kind of stuff that you see that comes from it. But yeah, I think it'd be a really fun stream game. I hope things settle down for them, but yeah, it seems like they're in a little bit of a mess over there from what I'm reading. It's not, their solutions are not as simple as like snapping your fingers and getting more servers. It's a scalability of their code that is showing up repeatedly for them. So I hope they figure it out, because the game itself is fun, and I love third-person shooters. So seeing a new third-person shooter that's fun as hell, I'm all for.
Yeah, just to show you, like you don't know when I don't think any of these people know when their game's going to be a massive success. I think there are a few exceptions with certain people in the industry that have egos, but that's why they didn't prep. They're like, why didn't they make the servers bigger? Because what if the game would have flopped? Now they spend all this money
you
on
think
servers.
about it, like no one had early access to this game for review either, Greg. So like internally, they probably weren't that confident in it, and then it ends up being this smash hit, and they're like, crap. We're gonna have to fix some of these things.
And then you go to and you look at some of their other games like Magicka, and like these aren't bad games. I'm not ragging on it, but like Magicka and like the Gauntlet remake, like those didn't do particularly well. Why would they invest millions of dollars in larger servers? You know what I mean? Where they could put that to dev time. You know what I mean? To make the game better.
And to your point, you can't invest in that infrastructure until you know you need it. But It's also one of those things where it's on the game director to really think about scalability at all times. So I don't want to give them just a free pass for this, but I understand what they're going through, and I echo what you said. Congratulations to them on actually making something people want to play. It's so hard to get people into a new thing. So congratulations to them for that. On to the next story, though. The DICE Awards were last week, Greg.
Aussie was there, yeah.
Ozzy was there. He won the DICE Award for Best Aussie of the Year.
He did every year.
Every year. We love Ozzy.
Sam was upset.
Oh, good pun there. Sorry, you got me there, Greg. Very good pun. As Sam Chandler is an Australian. Maybe he'll come on the podcast sometime. But yeah, so let's go down some of these winners. Outstanding achievement in animation went to Marvel's Spider-Man 2. I have to agree, man. It is just astonishing, some of those scenes.
Gorgeous game.
Love it. I love it. I love the traversal in it. I love the new web wings. Like, I just love it. It is great. And yeah, the other nominees in that category were also deserving. Final Fantasy 16, Hi-Fi Rush, Mortal Kombat 1, and Super Mario Bros. Wonder.
It is a pretty game. Like remember, this is like animation standpoint, right? So it's that's the misconception. You don't look at the game as a whole, look at one particular aspect of it.
So speaking of art direction, outstanding achievement in art direction went to Alan Wake 2.
Interesting.
I think it has a lot to do with how they mix the real life footage with the other stuff, right? Like, I think it's a good balance of that. Also, just the way that the ghosts appear and stuff. I don't know. It's spooky. Other nominees in this category were Hogwarts Legacy, Marvel Spider-Man 2, Star Wars Jedi, Survivor, which I still argue is the worst name, and then Starfield. So congratulations for all those nominees. Next up, outstanding achievement. I'm not going to list all these nominees. Outstanding achievement in character went to Marvel Spider-Man 2, Miles Morales. I love Miles. He's like one of my favorite characters in like the last 20 years in art, in any form of art. I just love Miles Morales. I love his story. I love his family. I love everything, like where he lives. It's just great. Outstanding achievement in original composition of music went to Marvel Spider-Man 2.
Yeah,
wow.
Good music, good orchestra music, huge swells.
Yeah. Not mentioned on this list at all. Octopath Traveler 2, which won Best Music at Shacknews Awards. Outstanding achievement in audio design also went to Marvel's Spider-Man 2. I have to agree with it. Excellent audio. And also how they balance it between the game, like on your TV, and also the controller on the DualSense is pretty cool. Great. Outstanding achievement in story went to Baldur's Gate 3. Outstanding technical achievement went to Marvel Spider-Man 2. It seems like the DICE Awards really like what Insomniac had to offer. Action Game of the Year went to Marvel Spider-Man 2. Adventure Game of the Year went to The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom. Family Game of the Year went to Super Mario Bros. Wonder.
There you go.
Fighting Game of the Year. Hey, they got it right. Street Fighter 6. I don't know. The Shacknews gave it to Mortal Kombat 1. And the number one player in Mortal Kombat 1 is having an existential crisis about where to play next. Sonic Fox is debating going back to Street Fighter 6 or playing Tekken. So I couldn't agree more. Street Fighter 6 was my fighting game of the year, not Shacknews's, but mine. Also, look at this. Look at these donkeys. Racing game of the year, they gave it to Forza. Okay. F-Zero 99 was nominated, but apparently they don't have taste over there at DICE. Role-playing game of the year, Greg. What do you think?
Baldur's Gate 3.
Yep. Sports game of the year. This feels like every year at this point. MLB The Show 23. Strategy and simulation game of the year went to Dune Spice Wars. Hell of an RTS game right there. Online game of the year winner. What do you think this was?
Online?
Yeah.
Please don't say COD.
It was nominated, but no. Diablo 4.
Oh, well. You know, me and Nicole really like playing that game. So yeah,
it's good online. It's good, I think co-op, but yeah, it's okay. Immersive reality technical achievement winner. Okay, that's a loaded category. Horizon Call of the Mountain, that VR game in the Horizon universe. And then I guess they're calling it immersive reality so that it includes AR and VR. So the immersive reality game of the year went to Asgard's Wrath 2, which is like one of the largest VR games out there, just in scope. Outstanding achievement for independent game went to Cocoon. Mobile game of the year went to What the Car. Hello Kitty Island Adventure.
Runs. I've heard of that one.
Yeah, it's a car with legs. Hello Kitty Island Adventure is on here. Honkai Star Rail's on here. Terra Nil, Gubbins, all good mobile games. Outstanding achievement in game design went to Baldur's Gate 3. Outstanding achievement in game direction went to Baldur's Gate 3. And the game of the year went to Baldur's Gate 3. If you haven't had a chance, check out the speech that Larian Studios gave when they were presented with Game of the Year. They had a lot of really good things to say about it kind of echoes what I said in the Best Developer Award for the Shacknews Awards, Greg, where I was like, look, last year was a great year for video game releases, but it wasn't a good year for video game developers as individuals.
No.
And it continues this year. So both the speakers during their acceptance speech, they dedicated most of their time as a message to creatives out there saying, you are good. What you do is great. And please don't leave our industry. We will accept you back. And that was definitely referring to what happened at Activision Blizzard just the week before. And then it's every day, man. We see it every day, right? Like it
even gets worse in the discourse on the general public who don't seem to give a shit. They don't care that people lose their jobs. They're just like, good, my game will be better now. That's like the consent about like groups that I've seen. I don't think
that's true. No, not what you're saying. Like their thesis is incorrect. Like games are made by people, and if you lose the talented people who are making your games, what makes those games special is also going to disappear.
I agree.
And it's just really frustrating that like the people making these decisions are so financially motivated that they either ignore talent as part of the equation, or they're even worse, they don't value it at all. Which in a creative medium, that is so deflating. So like I agree with what Sven and everyone else at the DICE Awards had to say about it. Like I hope that the industry will be around for all these talented people. Because in our industry, like media, it's not the case. Like the jobs that are being lost, there's not any jobs to replace them. So hopefully, the games industry will get through this period it's in right now. Because I, I'm trying to tweet less the longer I've been back on that platform. But like my question to everyone running media outlets right now, and I know we've had to tighten our belt here financially for last year, the year before, basically since 2020. We've had to really look at how we're operating at Shacknews and try to be more efficient. If you fire all of your writers, there's no one left to create content. Of course, your websites are going to die. But I just what happened, at least what reportedly is happening at Vice right now, is super messed up. Like, it's one thing to say we're going to get out of the business. It's another thing to like delete websites, delete articles. Why? Why remove them entirely? I felt that way when they shut down Jezebel earlier this year. And I know it's different ownership groups, but it's frustrating to watch this because at some point you're going to cut all the jobs and you will have cut all of your fixed costs. And then what? If revenues are still dropping a year from now, what costs can you cut? You already fired everyone. You're bringing in less money. Your traffic's plummeting. You know what I mean? Like it's like self-fulfilling prophecy, I feel, in some ways.
But most of these businesses don't worry about that until it's too late, Asif, I feel.
That's the problem. There's a problem. But yeah, shout out to Larian for their message to developers. And yeah, I share a similar sentiment for all the journalists out there that are going through it right now. It sucks. Y'all can't work at Shacknews. Sorry.
You're so small.
We're not big enough to absorb all this. And I'm really curious where this IGN labor dispute goes from here, because being recognized is a good thing, and now stepping up for the rights of your workers is the next part.
I mean, like we've seen it before, right? I mean, I've seen this in the film industry. It's a good example. Donovan and I talk about it all the time. Like the SAG Writers Guild represents 30,000 people, and it's like great, but like there are way more than 30,000 writers in the industry. There's probably millions. So like what they'll do is they'll be super selective on who gets hired, and then they'll freelance everybody. That's what they'll do. Yeah, they all do. They keep 2 staffers and then like freelance 100 people. Like that's what they'll always do. And then every single time we try to fix that problem so they don't freelance people. And like I've been freelancing since I was 16. Like I get it, right? You're practically your own business, and it does come with perks. But like it's just tough. It's sometimes you don't have a stable client. It's really tough. And like now, especially now, as I kind of like to dabble just to see how my industry's doing. Like for video production, post production, is bad. Like, I mean, how much little can we pay you to do this thing for us? You know what I mean? And then we'll immediately not use you for something else afterwards. It's rough. It's very rough.
Yeah. And it's hard to ignore the impact that AI is having on all this.
I'm scared shitless. I'm absolutely scared to death. If you guys ever do an AI talk on this show, I want to come in because I think people are undercutting it, and I think I think the majority of people think it's a great thing, and I'm like, no, that's terrifying. Like it terrifies me. I think it's fascinating, but also completely terrifies me. Everyone likes it until their job's on the line, then they have a problem. You know what I mean? Like, oh, well, I didn't know it was going to replace me. I'm against it now. But you were for it for 2 years. Yeah, but I didn't know it was going to replace me.
I think it's more like I think people who just have a job, Greg, I don't think they care. It's people who have a career. Right? Like, yeah. And especially people in the creative space. Like Joe is a career designer, Photoshop wizard, right? After Effects, all that stuff. Yeah. Like you're a video editor, you're a content creator. Like you film, you do VO, right? Like, and you've spent time like honing your craft, right? And that's true of all these people. The consumer not valuing the creator has been going on for a long time. I think that AI is an acceleration of that, but it shows like everyone was flipping out over these cat videos that Sora from OpenAI was generating last week. Mm-hmm. Why? Because it's so realistic. You know what's more realistic than an AI generated cat? Your cat, Sadie, Buffy. Your cats are more real, and your videos are more real. So it's like, what are we valuing here?
Bottom line.
You know, I mean, like, why are we valuing, oh my God, this thing can make a cat video? Like the internet has some shortage of cat videos? Like what are we doing? We're training this on existing content, and without the content creators, your training goes to shit.
But it's getting that way now anyway. Like I spend majority of time on YouTube. That's my expertise, right? That's my career. And I go through shorts and I can tell you content mill, content mill, content mill. I can tell you when someone's using an AI generator or like have an AI workflow involved. And it's usually something with like you can tell when the voice is VO, and then like they have like pictures of comics and they're like describing something, which was obviously pulled from like a Wikipedia page and then written and voiced by AI and then pumped up. But it gets shared 10 million times. Until that stops, it's just going to get worse. Until people start caring about if people use AI, if they don't use it. And like the discourse on social media in general is terrible. I mean, I've seen like an artist had tweeted like, or on Reddit or on Twitter or on Facebook, I lost my job today. If anyone knows a 2D artist. And then like the discourse is like, well, sounds like you need a new career now. Like the guy only spent 30 years honing his. Yeah, fuck him though, right? Like he's the villain in this story. It's like, no, he's not. Like, but people don't like we talk about this all the time in Shack. The quality, people are caring less and less about quality. Yeah. They just want a product. They don't care. And like the second big corporations that do, like for me, like a lot of my side work is marketing stuff, commercials, ads, social media stuff. The second you don't have to pay someone to shoot something, an actor to star in something, a person to do the voice, and a person to edit, they're not going to care if the person has 6 fingers.
Yeah.
It's $1,000. Yeah. Who cares? Yeah. Do it. There you go. I'm done. Don't need you anymore. Good. And like, that's going to be the discourse between everything. And it's going to be these people with high, and then I'm lumping myself in this. So people who have these creative skills get lumped into this Walmart brand value because AI can make a shark smile. And like, if we pay Joe to do that, it'd be thousands and thousands of dollars. They don't care about quality.
But like at some point, what's left?
Universal income?
No, but my point is, in this world of generative AI, if they bankrupt all of the creators, and I'm going to sound like a broken record on this podcast about this, but like if you kill all the creators and you kill all the news gathering agencies and all the guides writers, you kill all of our websites, what happens next? Because could ChatGPT review Final Fantasy VII Rebirth without existing reviews? No.
I think eventually it'll get there.
It doesn't have hands. It has no training for how to play a video game. Like Google spent years working on AlphaGo and DeepMind, and they taught it how to play Dota and they taught it how to play chess, right? And it's all about these specific use cases. But if you think about Shacknews.com and what we do, right? We write news, we interpret news in real time, we fact check, we write guides, we create videos based on our own capture, right? So, or even this podcast, we're having our own conversation with our own original thoughts. That is what is being used to train these things. So in the absence of that information, I think that AI will get dumber and less useful. So the predominant mentality here that you're fucked as a video editor, that I'm fucked as someone who owns a website, I disagree with. There has to be a path forward where the humans and the machines coexist. They need us. It's just the suits, the people at the very top of the company don't see that. That's what I think's happening.
No,
go ahead.
I think you're right. Like but the problem, I think that there's going to be like this huge gap, and I don't know how long that gap will be, to where like none of the creatives have work until the AI can't generate anything new because there's been nothing new generated over whatever timeline.
That's my point.
There'll be that stupid gap, and I've seen it before, like in my industry, that stupid gap where like they don't care. And then right at the end of the gap, when revenue starts to fall and there's nothing for the AI to work with, then we'll see this resurgence, and I'll probably be 50 when that happens. Like, like they're like the business, for decades, for generations, for centuries, it's been a balance in capitalism of business and creative. And it is a balance. It's a fine balance, right? You lean too much on one side or the other, things get hurt. Business only cares about the bottom line. And when you move the creative, it just becomes a bottom line issue, period. They don't care if it looks bad. They don't care if people don't I mean, people were so mad about Fallout using AI art. Do you think people are going to give a shit when that show comes out? No. Like the 2-week discourse that our society has is not enough to stop it.
That's good. Like, we're in an outrage culture, and there's always something next to be outraged about. Speaking of which, I have some breaking news on this podcast. Reddit has filed a registration statement for a proposed IPO. Their symbol will be RDDT. And yeah, that's about it.
That's cesspool. Really? I love when companies go public when they've like there's no reason for they should invest in.
I mean, sources of information on the internet. So we'll see.
Also terrible. That's a terrible place.
I look, I got control of the Shacknews subreddit and I shut it down instantly. That's how I feel about Reddit. What they did last year, how they handled a lot of stuff last year, I disagree with. And yeah, I have no intent to ever turn that subreddit back on or make it public again. Because yeah, I disagree with how Reddit operates too. And I have an account there, but you'll notice I barely ever post there. But yeah, it's just interesting.
What do you value it at opening? What does it say the value? What do you think it'll be valued at?
They haven't said yet. They filed their original document, Greg, but they're going to do what's called a road show now, where they go around to the different mutual funds and hedge funds and kind of pitch themselves, and then the syndicate of broker dealers will decide on here's what your best valuation will be. In this world, with the bubble that we're in, with the fact that they just announced a partnership with Google on AI, I think it's going to carry a premium. They say there's 100,000 active communities with nearly 73 million daily active users. So I don't know. That's small. That's the smallest publicly traded social company, right? Like, so it's not 73 million seems low, honestly.
But like, I've been on ad calls with other companies, and like nobody clicks Reddit ads. Like they don't work.
Any ads, Greg?
They don't click. They even the information that's shared, like also if they don't want to watch a video, they don't want to click a link. They just want you to copy and paste a wall of text, so they don't have to leave Reddit, and that's terrible. That helps nobody.
Mm-hmm.
So if ad revenue doesn't work and people don't want to leave the subreddit, where do you make your money?
Well, you make your money by filing an IPO so you can exit. That's what's going on here.
Or you charge money to log in, right, to use it.
So I won't give a full opinion on this until I can at least dive deeper into their prospectus. But my gut here is to avoid this IPO. But my brain is telling me that the idiots in Superstock and Wall Street Bets are going to love this stock, and they're going to flood it with buys. That risk of being a meme stock is pretty high for Reddit.
It's true.
It may not matter what the fundamentals are of the company, because it's Reddit, it's a brand, and it's the dumbest stock market we've ever had. So we'll see. I'll dig in more, and I may write something about this on Shacknews or do a video or something. But I just saw it across my desk, so I was like, we should probably talk about it. Our last news story, and then we should probably get out of here. Penny's Big Breakaway got a surprise release on PC and consoles. It's from the makers of Sonic Mania. It looks cool as hell. It's like yo-yo based locomotion in a 3D environment. I bought it already. I haven't had a chance to play it. There were a lot of great announcements from that direct, man.
There were. That drop sucked too, because like we would have loved to review that. That would have done really well for us.
Sure.
It was out, so it's useless now basically to us. So we have to
we a lot of our following and readership and viewership love the Sonic games. So this game is something that the Sonic community is looking forward to. So yeah, not being able to review it is a bit of a bummer, but good for them. They're confident that they could release the game without any press really behind it. I did see some influencers had it early, so maybe they just went a different route with it. But yeah, congratulations on the launch, Penny's Big Breakaway. Hope you guys succeed. One last thing. I don't know if you saw it or not, Greg, but there is did you see the trailer for Kingmakers?
I did. It reminded me a lot of Army of Darkness, which was funny. It does.
It's like they made an Army of Darkness game, and it's good. I don't know if it's good or not yet, but that might be the best trailer I've seen in years. It's like 23 seconds in, you're like, holy crap. It goes from like, it looked like Chivalry at first, right? Or like Kingdom Come Deliverance. And then 23 seconds in, there's this pickup truck, and he's just plowing through, like knights and stuff.
And then he's got a grenade launcher. Yeah, it's awesome.
And then there's like a helicopter. I saw someone being like, oh man, it'd be crazy if you could like call in a tactical nuke or something. It kind of reminds me of the Totally Accurate Battle Simulator game. Tabs is what it's called. But yeah, looking forward to learning more about Kingmakers. But I just wanted to let our listeners know, if you haven't seen Kingmakers trailer, check it out. I liked it so much, Greg, I posted it to my personal Cortex. So if you want to see the trailer, you can just go to shacknews.com/Cortex/101-866/91/man-with-the-briefcase. That's a pretty bad URL. But, if you want to go there, all sorts of great memes and the daily weather report from Shacknews. But yeah, Kingmakers. Wanted to mention it before we left. It was just one of those things that games like that make me like our industry, man, because that's a creative human idea that I don't think AI would implement as well. But maybe we'll wait and see.
All I'm thinking about is the Butters episode where he goes into Osimo. Do you remember that episode? That's what they made fun of the film industry, because I think they were doing that, because usually they criticize that, right? Like all the time, like their use of AI in film, but they use it, I think, to make movies nowadays. Madam Web might have been that movie.
I don't know. That's for another show. You talk about that on Pop Goes the Culture.
That's just true.
But yeah, so that's our show. I think that's going to do it for today's show. It's over 2 hours, so whoever told me to keep it to an hour, I'm sorry. I don't know if I even can. I'm trying, but we had a big game to talk about with Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, which did get a Shacknews 8 out of 10. Greg disagrees. He thinks it's a 9. So yeah, maybe check out our review. I know it's up on Facebook, Twitter, and on YouTube if you want to watch it in video form. Or if you're more of a reader, you can read it on shacknews.com. So yeah, you can subscribe to us on your podcast app of choice. Tune in every Friday. We'll have more Shack Together for you. And yeah, we're on YouTube. We're Shacknews on YouTube now. We're also Shacknews interviews on YouTube. We're on TikTok at Shacknews, on Twitter at Shacknews, on Facebook we're Shacknews, which is our largest platform, Greg. How weird is that? And yeah, where else are we? Bennigan's?
We said TikTok, Twitter's Facebook, YouTube. We're everywhere. Everywhere that's worth being. I mean, well, not X, but everywhere else. I
mean, we're on X. It's just, it doesn't matter. The algorithm's so broken. Like, I'm over there at TechnoSucks tweeting, and I'm like, no one's gonna see this, but whatever. Yeah. So give us a subscription in all those different places, or give us a follow, or don't. It's free country. Yeah, that's it. It's the show. A long show. But thank you, Greg. Happy to have you back on a podcast. Happy that we're shacked together here. It's a little different. I don't have the same intro and outro that I used to. So I'm still trying to figure out if I have like a sign off yet. It's kind of been rambling these last few weeks, but also I'm very sleep deprived. So yeah, tune in next week. I'll likely have more F-099 to talk about. I'm going to give Pocket Card Jockey a little bit more time. And I believe Ozzy is going to be, TJ's working on Penny's Big Breakaway for a review. So even though we didn't get early, Greg, we're still going to review it. So those are all the places that you can support us, all the things to look forward to. I want to thank Joe Stasio, our producer, who had to leave early. I want to thank Greg, our head of video at Shacknews, for joining us. And thank John Pentiment for at least giving me a little bit of a joke at the beginning where I could talk about his Apple Vision Pro. But yeah, that's hilarious. I did not know that. And I'm not returning mine. I do have thoughts, though, and I will share them. So we'll see you next week. Bye.
Bye.
Shack Together is a Shacknews production. If you'd like to find out more about Shacknews, head over to shacknews.com. Why not write into the show? Message Asif at Asif Khan at shacknews.com. That's ASIF.KHAN at shacknews.com. See you next time.